Downbelow Station by Cherryh. So this is episode 30 of a series I'm doing called The Masterpieces of Science Fiction. And this is the 30th book I've read in the series of 140 books. And this is also kind of part of a challenge I'm doing called New Author November. And this is the 5th new author I've read this month and the 3rd female new author I've read this month. Now, this book was copyright 1981, and it won the Hugo Award for Best Novel in 1982. This book has been on my radar for decades. I tried to read it a couple times before when I had an old book club edition, and I could never really get into it. The length kind of intimidated me a bit at the time. And I guess what I can say about this book up front is this is a book about its plot mostly. We do get some character work, but mostly this is a book about political intrigue, economic intrigue, this war, this rebellion, everything that's going on in this book. It's a very plot-heavy book. There are some science fiction themes, but it's never really the point of any of these books. It does get you to think a little bit, but it's just a very interesting book that has a lot of intrigue. It's almost like a chess match of jockeying for power and this war that's going on. So let's just go ahead and get into it. When you start off this book, it's pretty cool. You get some diagrams of Downbelow Station. So this is kind of helpful. A lot of the book takes place on the station, and they're running around all over the place. So you can refer back to this and kind of get your bearings of what's going on. And then the first chapter of this book is basically just a data dump, catching the reader up from the year 2000 roughly to the year 2350. So she goes over 350 years in the progress of humanity on how we started expanding beyond the solar system. And basically what's happened is this company called Sol Company, it's later referred to as the Earth Company or just the company, they end up with kind of the most political power on Earth. And they're kind of leading the effort of expanding beyond the solar system and building a space station. And as humanity decides where they want to go, the nearest star system that might support life, this company is kind of taking the lead and sending ships and missions out there to find out what's out there. And so after many years, they've expanded and found about, I think 9 of these solar systems. And one for sure had life. The other one, Cytine, which Cherryh has already written books about that one too. I can't remember if that had life, but it's another very important planet that's kind of talked about in this book. But this planet is the first planet, and it's called Pell. And it's the first planet that they found that has some life. And they're these little creatures that kind of look like Ewoks, and they're kind of dumb. They don't have much culture or technology. They're kind of like teddy bears running around that can kind of talk. And so this book mostly takes place around this planet, Pell. It's also called Downbelow. And this station that's around the planet, which is nicknamed Downbelow Station. And as this Earth company, this company has been expanding, they've kind of had troubles keeping everything in check. And the further out we get from Earth, the more trouble is starting to brew. And we have some factions that are wanting to kind of break off away from the company and kind of unionize and kind of create their own system out there. And also another thing I guess I should talk about is at first space travel was just kind of regular, bound by the laws of physics, no faster than light travel. But at some point they learned how to jump these ships, so they can travel faster than light, but it takes a series of jumps to move around the galaxy Still takes some time, but it's really shrunk down the time it takes to get out to these areas. So a bit before this book starts, Earth and this Earth company has realized that they need to do something about this. So they build this big fleet and they send these captains and these ships out to kind of rein all these troublesome dissenters back in line, you know. So Pell Station's kind of right on the border, right on the cusp of where this is going on. So it's very influential. A lot of humanity has kind of been drawn to this planet because it does support life in a roundabout way. Humans can't just go there and breathe, but it's got the potential to support life in the future. And so a lot of this outer reach of the galaxy is kind of condensed here, and it's just become a very important key chess piece in this game that the Earth is playing with these kind of Union dissenters, you know. So it's a theme. It's a very influential book, if anything, I can say, when it comes to a very in-depth, dense political space opera. And then this idea that we still can't get away from corporations and how much power that these corporations can wield. We see that in all kinds of books now. We saw it in the past too, but I think C.J. Cherryh did a really good job kind of bringing it all together in a book like this, making it very intriguing, very dense. There's so many things that are happening. There's characters you're not sure who they're really aligned with. There's characters that might be spies. There's all kinds of stuff going on. It keeps you on your toes. There's twists and turns. When we were talking about the plot here, the plot is really amazing. The problem I got with this book, and we'll just kind of roll right into kind of a pro and con thing here. The characters are good. There's two characters in particular that I really liked. But there was never enough character work to keep me intrigued enough in everything that was going on. This high stakes game. The way it was playing out, I was just kind of reading it to find out what happened, but I didn't really care one way or the other. And maybe I just didn't get into the characters enough for this one, but that was my biggest kind of issue with it. And that did make the book suffer because it is a big, thick, dense book, and it was a slog to get through this thing. You just kept reading on and on about all these situations, all these characters, all these things happening. There was characters being introduced almost throughout the entire book. It was kind of a challenge to keep track of everything that was going on. But in the end, I really just didn't care. When I started reading this book, I was kind of hooked in the beginning. It was difficult to figure out what was going on because you're just kind of thrown right into the action. Besides that chapter kind of bringing you up to speed, it was really broad. You didn't know who these people were, all the nuances of what was going on the station. So you're just kind of thrown in right into the deep end. You're forced to figure it out. And I like that part of it. I know some people said they didn't like that part of it. And I was looking up some of the other books in this series. I'm thinking, man, this is just going to be right up my alley. But by the time I got to the end of it, like I said, I just didn't really care. I don't think I want to read too much more in this series. You know, maybe I will in the future. But after finishing this book and reading up more on what other people thought were pros and cons of this, I think people suggest to start with her others. If you didn't really like this, then maybe jump over to one of her other series. I think it's called Foreigner. And I think she's still writing books in that series. So I think I'm definitely going to try her again at some point. And I think I might jump over and try one of those books instead. So that's kind of all I wanted to say about this book. It's very interesting, very intriguing, very plot-driven. But just in the end, there wasn't enough to get me invested in the characters. The aliens kind of didn't feel like they had much to do with the story, almost like they were just kind of thrown in just because. And in the end, like I said, I don't even really care to figure out what's going to happen in the future, because there are some things that are left kind of loose at the end that you might want to figure out what's going to happen. But I almost just don't even care. I might read a Wikipedia entry or something. But I don't know. Maybe you guys can convince me that there's better books in this series. I don't know if you have to read these in order. So if anyone has any suggestions, just let me know. But that's where we are there. And I'm on to Mission of Gravity by Hal Clement next. This will round out 6 books for the month. I should be able to get through this by the end of the month. I don't know that I'll be able to read any more, because Downbelow Station really took a lot longer than I thought it would to read. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.